How to remove your front wheel bearings on a dirt bike. This is a 2016 YZ250x. Before you start, put your wheel bearings in the freezer. Grab a 22mm socket, undo your front axle, 10mm socket on the pinch bolts, both sides. Just need these loose, so you don't need to take them off all the way. Take your front axle out using an extension and a dead blow hammer. Remove your front wheel. Remember the location of your spacers. Big one's on the rotor side, and the shorter one is on the non-rotor side. Next, place your front wheel on a table with something to support it, using a spare tire to protect the rotor from touching the table. Then you're going to want to take off the spacer and oil seal. Next, you're going to want to heat up the hub. You can use a heat gun or a torch. Probably just like a minute or so. Keep moving the flame around the hub. And then drive out your bearing. Clean up the hub and do the same for the other side. Don't forget your spacer. Do the same thing for the other side. Once it's clean, heat up your hub again. Grab your frozen bearing and drive it in. You hear how that sound changed? That's when you know your bearing's seated. Do the other side. Forget to clean off your spacer before you drop it in. You don't have to, but I'll put a little grease on the spacer. Make sure it's seated nice and happy. And then grab your other bearing and drop it in there. You can use a 27mm socket. Grab your new oil seals. Make sure to have this surface touching the bearing and the flatter surface on the outside of the wheel. I like to use a little bit of grease too, just to help it seal. It'll go on easier than the bearing. Clean it off and repeat on the other side. I like to get my wheel axle, clean it, put some new lube on it, and use it to center the spacer. Spread your brake caliper pads, loosen your brake caliper. Don't forget your spacers. Make sure they're in the right orientation. Grab your clean and greased front axle and insert the front wheel. Get your front axle nut, tighten it down to your specified torque. In my case, it's 105 Newton meters. I usually do is I'll tighten the opposite side pinch bolts to hold the axle for me. And then I'll tighten the axle nut to torque. And then I'll loosen up the pinch bolts again. I'll grab the front brake lever and clamp down on the pads on the rotor so everything lines up for the front brakes. Once that's all lined up, I'll tie in the calipers. Don't forget to torque your caliper as well. I have it set to 28 newton meters and it's a 10 millimeter socket. Once I have that torqued down, all I have to do are the pinch bolts. What I like to do is I spin the front wheel in the air and jam on the front brakes to help align the front axle. Once the front axle is lined, I'll tie in the pinch bolts down. Pinch bolts are set to 21 newton meters. And there you go. That's your front wheel bearings replaced on your YZ250. This will also work on most other dirt bikes. Some things might change. You might have a straight clip holding the bearing in or whatnot. So refer to your manual, but this is like a good kind of overview of what you need to do.